Hi, I'm John, and today I'm going to talk about the Jeff Bezos article in the Washington Post. And the hard truth is Americans don't trust the news media. It's true. We don't. Even at best, it looks like about maybe 50% of us do, and the rest don't. And they don't in a major way. You know, in order to have a good discourse, we've got to be able to have news media that is independent, is showing both sides of an issue or three sides of an issue, whatever it might be. You can't have biases in this. And it was all precipitated by the Washington Post not endorsing a candidate. And then there's been other newspapers that have done the same thing. Well, that's good, because honestly, the news media shouldn't be doing any of that. And it doesn't matter. One of the things that wasn't mentioned when people talked about this, Bezos says, presidential endorsements do nothing to tip the scales of an election. No undecided voters in Pennsylvania are going to say, I'm going with newspaper A's endorsement. None. What a presidential endorsement actually does is create a perception of bias, a perception of non-independence. Ending them is a principled decision and the right one. I think he's on to something here. Obviously, a lot of us have thought this for years, that there's an inherent bias in the media, whether it's on TV, radio, or newspapers, online opinions. And one of the things that he says in the article is that you're having unresearched podcasts, you're having all sorts of disparate voices, even one like mine right here, right now, telling people things that may or may not be true. And honestly, a lot of times, people that are doing podcasts and things like that, they tend to be on the fringes. If you take a look at people, there's a bell curve. You've got people on the hard left, you got people on the hard right, and they seem to be the noisiest, most up in arms, and full of information that isn't completely accurate or leaves things out. But we see that in the mainstream news too. So it's in these big media types that are trying to influence and have an agenda to influence you one way or the other, and will say almost anything to do so. And so it's gotten down to a point where, regardless of your belief system or what you think, it gets things polarized. And so I lay the blame for our polarized conversation regarding politics, and it really showed up in this election. It has to do with media that doesn't really report the news, tends to have a bias one way or the other. I like a good political discussion. And I like discussions with people who don't agree with me. Just a second, I got a cough. There, it's a heck of a thing. You got a cough. Anyway, I like a good, spirited political discussion, and certainly with people that disagree with me. What I don't like is people calling other people names just because they disagree. And that's been going on way too much. And I lay it at the feet of the media for not just laying out an unbiased, even-handed approach to news. You know, they really don't do that. And so it gets people frustrated, and they don't believe that they're doing anything that is on the up and up. So one of the things that Bezos says, we must be accurate, and we must be believed to be accurate. That's true. You've got to be believed. The perception will be reality. And they've got to go for accuracy. And it just hasn't been done. And he's right. One of the things that it references in the article is this Gallup poll where America's trust in mass media from 1972 to 2024. You can see where it's plummeted greatly. And People, are down to a point where 31% believe that they believe it a great deal or a fair amount, and then there's 33%, not very much, and then 36% not at all. So what you're talking about is 69% of people in this survey basically don't believe the media, not very much or none at all. And that's a problem. So what you have filling the void sometimes are, podcasts, talk, all sorts of things that Bezos references as well, unresearched stuff. And yes, you will find some stuff that is wacky as the day is long. And I've seen it, I've listened to it, and you go, there's no way that's true. And I'm talking about stuff that might be more politically on my side of the aisle. But I want to hear opinions from all corners. But the kooks are the people on the outside of the bell curve, on that small part. But they tend to be the most loud and get in your face type of thing. You got to really filter some of that out. But then there's this bell curve of people in the middle that want to have just a good, honest discussion. And I don't think we got that this go round really with the mass media. So I think what he's saying as an influencer makes a lot of sense. This goes even further as partisans' trust in mass media from that same period of time. It used to be up there. 70% of Republicans back in 72 thought it was trust, and 75% for Democrats. It's gone all the way down for 12% for Republicans, and that's probably because some of their opinions are not shown very much in mainstream media. I want everybody's opinion, not just my own. And then independents the same way. So there's about 41%, it looks like about a little bit less than that. 39% of the, partisan people, don't trust the media whatsoever. Even Democrats sometimes are higher and lower, and right now at 54, even half of them really don't have trust in the mass media. So it's a problem. And then it goes down by age and all that type of thing. I'll leave a link to this article. I think it's really good that he's addressing this. I think it's the most important issue of the day, because all this fighting that we have regarding politics, or could be religion, it could be all these touchy subjects, is rooted in the fact that we have a media that doesn't give us, really an unbiased view of what's going on. I agree. It should just be independent. It should be reliable. And so we have a basis. And when we do have an argument, or we want to convince somebody of our opinion, it would be nice to be able to go from one source and say, here's this source of news, and it really seems to be accurate, but here's my opinion on that. And then another person could have a 180-degree different opinion and say, you know what? I agree with the same findings of the media and that news source, but here's my opinion. And, in doing that, we'll probably get closer to the truth as to how we should run our lives, how should we live as Americans. I think there's a case that we can have good discussions, but it doesn't happen with a media that's biased, because people are too busy fighting the media and not trusting it. And then, you get a whole lot of finger pointing, name calling, all sorts of things like that. So it's very important that the news media clean up their act, and he's right. And it's good to see that he'll do that with the Washington Post. I don't care what your opinion is. If you want to have a political discussion, I'm okay with that. If you would disagree with me 180% or 180 degrees, and it's okay. I'm real okay with that. Because I think when you have a good, robust discussion, I think you can come to some common ground sometimes. And then even if you don't, you can say, we just agree to disagree, and that's just the way it'll be. And we'll see at the next election. It's okay. It's okay. You can still be my friend. We can still be friends, even though we might totally disagree. I've got people in my neighborhood that totally disagree with us, and we're friends. And I think that's the way it used to be as well. I remember back in the 80s, there was the McLaughlin Group on PBS, and I used to love it because John McLaughlin would have a little talk. It would be about a half hour, and they'd talk about different issues of the day. And you'd have a couple of people that were definitely on the left and a couple of people that were definitely on the right, and they would argue it out, and it was great. And I know for a fact that those people, after those shows, went out and had lunch together. I mean, I know it. There was times when you got the sense that they were friends, but they were talking about things and the way we thought we should run our lives and our government. And it was okay. And you know what? Make your point. Argue it. You know, I don't care if you think that flying monkeys from the dark side of the moon are going to invade the earth, and you've got an opinion about it, and you know, that's okay, and it's going to affect something down here on earth. Let's talk about it. If you want to talk about it, it's okay. Doesn't matter. I really like a good conversation, and some people don't, is what I'm finding, is that they will, the slightest bit of disagreement, and they'll bristle at it. And it's like, we don't live in that world. We're going to have disagreements. But it would be good if we had news sources where we could all agree that they're pretty accurate and they're trying to do an unbiased version of it. And in doing so, based on that, across our media, we could have a good discussion and find out what's best for the country. As it is right now, we're just fighting, and it's the news media's fault that we're fighting like we are. It just shouldn't be. We should be friends. We are fellow citizens. We may have differences of opinion, but we should have certain things that we agree upon. And the media function that way, just like other entities do as well. Sometimes religion does that, not always. But media is one of those things we all consume, and you know, accuracy, unbiasedness really would help in our political discourse. And I've seen that through this last election cycle. And it's not great the way people have been slinging mud the way they have, but these biased media outlets gin up all sorts of hatred and distrust of other people. That's the problem. And I really lay it all to blame at the foot of the media that we're having this bad political discourse. I'd rather have just a hashing out of the issues, just like they had on the McLaughlin Group. I mean, it was great. It's that kind of thing we should be doing. But that was back in the 80s. And to have that kind of discussion, I think we'll get to having encouraging, that is, our better angels in political discussion. So anyway, that's it. That's my opinion about Jeff's opinion, and I think he's right. I think he hits it right on the nail right on the head. Anyway, have a great day, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.